Bring a book. So do we, unfortunately. There's your Kindle. So it is.
So that's going to be the only one. Just using this camera.
You know what? I can. Oh, look at it. The camera just moved. The camera moved? Yeah, it just folded itself back up.
Did it?
Yeah, it unfolded and then
Then
folded.
maybe it was working. Hold on.
I just saw it out of the corner of my eye. There it goes.
The camera is working.
Okay. All right.
Recording in progress.
Bye. Right. Okay.
And we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Everyone, please rise. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks, Jim. Right along, we had moved the approval for the select board meeting rules ahead of public comments this evening because there's a portion in there that applies in the meeting rules. Public participation. What the new rules say is that a speaker may be allowed to speak twice on any agenda item and shall be limited to a total of 5 minutes on any agenda item. That was added, and I want to extend that to the non-agenda public comments portion also. I mean, I think that's just so that we don't spend the whole evening talking about things that are not on the agenda. Having said that, I don't want to stifle discussion. So if we're on an interesting topic and I think it's germane and we're not going to take an action on it because we can't take an action without warning it, we shouldn't take an action without warning it as an agenda item. I will allow discussion to continue, but at my discretion.
Does that need to go in there? Does that need to go in there?
No, this is going to be what I say at the beginning of each public comments session, just so that people know how it's going to work.
I'm sorry.
So is there a motion to approve the select board rules? I think we've all had a chance to look at them.
Move to approve the revised select board rules.
Second.
Moved, seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And the rules are approved. Now we'll open it up to public comment. This is when people can speak to something that's not on the agenda. If you have something important or not even important that you want to speak about, this would be the time to do it. The rules that I just mentioned, you will be allowed to speak twice, but not more than 5 minutes.
From the podium.
Yes. And you have to speak from the podium so that people at Zoom can hear you. Steve, you're first.
Yeah. You want to do it?
I know this has been a topic for quite some time, and I don't, it's.
Hold on.
Sorry. You're good. You're good. Sorry, Steve.
Okay, go ahead.
I don't think at this point in time, it has been solved. And that's that of the open flag issue. There are several businesses, there's over 15 that have the application in for the open flags. The problem is enforcement. I'm not pointing the finger at Peter because I don't think it is his fault at all. But if we're gonna have that ordinance, then it needs to be enforced equally to everybody. Not just one, not just two. I'm talking open flags and logo flags. I don't see any reason why we even have that bylaw in a sense. We have to encourage business in the town. We have several open businesses, storefronts, and I think that we need to address that. Maybe put it on the agenda for next meeting and see where we go, but that's the topic of several businesses that I've spoke to in town. That's what's going on.
Okay. The planning commission has discussed and acted upon this issue many, many times. Basically, getting back to the point where we're at, that open signs are not allowed, but then that was amended by the planning commission.
Not signs, flags is what I was referring to.
It can be allowed under certain circumstances. And the ordinance is fairly clear on that. As far as enforcement, we are working on a plan to do a better job of enforcement. It's in the works now, and I think you'll see the results of that fairly soon.
Why was it even put into a bylaw about open flags? What was the concern?
Well, it's a sign, and therefore the flag, open flags, and what we mean by open flags is a flag that says open on it, is a sign, and it falls under the sign ordinance, which is under the purview of the planning commission, of course, approved by the select board. And the planning commission has looked at it several times and always come back to the same place, that we don't want to see a sea of open signs throughout the town. And people made compelling arguments that they had a particularly unique situation where visibility or setback behind another store, whatever, where they needed to have people realize that they were back there and they were open. And that bylaw was amended to accommodate that, and it's very specific where that can be done. And the rest of it becomes enforcement. So you're absolutely right. I don't know. Right now, there hasn't been any catalog done, which ones are allowed and which ones should be removed, but.
I can tell you.
Well, we don't need to get into it now. Your comment has been recorded, and it will become part of the enforcement that we're talking about.
The other thing is, getting back to the speeding issue that has been the problem. Where are you going with that, and how are you going to approach the speeding issues? I know it's not on the agenda tonight, but it should be, and it should not be forgotten, and you know that. Debbie Frost has been here twice on Highland, and there's nothing been done about it.
Well, let me just kind of put that to rest right now. None of us sitting at this table are traffic engineers, and speed limits require a certain amount of expertise in order to accommodate the needs of both the residents, all three of the residents, the pedestrian movement and automobile. We are talking about doing a study throughout town of all the speed limits. It's going to require input from people that actually know what they're talking about, so that we can address the issue. If it's a state road, we have asked on some occasions to reduce the speed limit on state roads, and they consider our request and in most cases turn it down. Their response is that the roads are designed to accommodate a certain speed, and to try to artificially set the speed limit below that level is not effective. It turns into an enforcement issue, and we don't have the manpower to be enforcing speed limits throughout town that are artificially lowered. So what we want to consider in our consideration of this is other traffic calming measures. What can we do on some of these residential streets where people are using them as a shortcut or whatever and want to get from one end to the other? What can we do to calm the traffic through there physically? Again, we're not traffic engineers. It'll take an expert to let us do this. Most of the roads where people have complained are through roads, and they are being used by people that are going from one end of the road to the other. and not necessarily stopping on the road itself. And so in almost every one of those situations, it would require probably some sort of traffic calming measures to make it less comfortable for people to speed.
Can I add something,
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman? Also, just to be clear, we did have the Manchester Police Department do a study on Highland Avenue, but you said that no one's done anything. And I think they did a 1-month study of the speeds and came back with a bunch of data. And they also had an increased presence there for a time, just so there's not, we've done something, but I think you're right that we need it to be more townwide and kind of more of an overall thing.
So you think this is going to be effective to do I know we're not traffic control people, but do you think by doing an audit, it's going to work and be effective for us to?
What we've learned through decades of trying to deal with this issue is that artificially lowering a speed limit on a road that'll accommodate a higher speed doesn't work.
No,
Unless you have somebody sitting there pulling people over, and we just don't have the manpower to do that on every street in town. And if we're sitting here, somebody's going to be speeding over there. We move over there and somebody's speeding over here. And we also have witnessed that, I'm going to go back 35 years, two very well-known, upstanding citizens of the pillars of the community complained about speeding on their road, and we put a speed trap down there, and they were the first two caught. And they were very well-known individuals. Neither one of them is with us anymore, so I'm not going to name names, but that's kind of how it works.
I just don't want it to get put into some type of consulting or whatever process and nothing done about it. That's all. You know, that's the concern of the community. It's not just me.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm Tim Rice, 106 Palmer Place, over behind Ye Old Tavern, way behind there, so you can't see us, so I have an open flag on my used bookstore. So I have a used bookstore back there. My wife has a preschool, forest-based preschool called Fiddleheads. So I hesitate to ask about a zoning change, because it's not really a zoning change I'm concerned about. But I want to check the status of the amendment that was discussed and approved by the planning board. When I first moved here, like shortly after I moved here in 2021, I met with Janet Hurley about asking why the zoning of my property was mixed use 2 when the other part of my property, which is contiguous to Ye Old Tavern, is mixed use 1. I think I've mentioned this, I've been up here before. Janet agreed that it shouldn't have been that way. I was at the planning board, Phil Peterson agreed. There were several, so they said, just sit back, wait, the select board will hear this and it'll be fixed. I didn't come to several meetings, some time went by, and I inquired about it with Peter Barbizon, and he said that, don't worry, it'll happen. I came to a meeting in January of the select board, and they again reiterated that, yes, it's been approved. We'll tell the select board that it's approved. I came again in February. My wife came last month to the planning commission meetings and a select board meeting. Anyway, I'm just trying to get the status of this to see what's going on, because I have a film festival starting in May, and we'd like to sell T-shirts.
The planning commission submitted 29 different amendments to us. The one that you're talking about was item number 29.
Right.
And the select board had questions and issues on 5 of the 29, and the 29th was one of them. There was not, in our hearings, there was very little said about that particular amendment. And it was not explained clearly to the board in a way that we could embrace. And we sent the document back to the planning commission asking for them to remove those 5 items. We said, we don't have a problem with the other 24. if you want to resubmit those. Subsequent to that, I know the planning commission's been working on your issue, but they want to submit that to the select board independently of the other 24, so that we don't wind up in that circular situation where we shouldn't change the document as it comes to us. If there's any kind of change at all, it has to go back to the planning commission, and the process starts over again in a somewhat expedited manner, but not expeditiously. The original 24 is coming back for us. We will have a hearing on that, and most likely that'll be approved. Your issue will be submitted as a separate submission from the planning commission and will be considered in a hearing at this level. Since we closed the hearing on it the first time and have already taken an action on that, nothing can be done here at this level until it comes back from the planning commission. So.
And just to clarify, that's going to be when?
They may have.
They have a meeting scheduled, I believe it's a week from Monday.
Yeah, okay.
So they're going to address, you can check their agenda, but they're going to address the 24, and they're going to address your issue along with the other 5.
And then, there's, just so I'm clear along the timeline, then the very next select board meeting?
We have to warn, I think it's a 2-week.
Yeah, so they're going to, I believe they're going to take the 24, since they've already had their public hearings on that and they're not made any changes, they're going to send that to the select board first, separate from the other 5, which yours is part of that group. That night, they're going to have the discussion on that. If they approve that, then it comes to the select board for their.
But then we have to wait 2 weeks. We have to warn a meeting. It's a 2-week
Right.
Warning period, or 15 days, whichever it is. And we have a hearing. We can take action on it one way or the other. And then there's also an appeal period after that.
Right, so it depends how quickly the planning commission acts on those 5 and presents it to the select board before I can tell you what the timeline is.
Sounds like it should happen by the end of May. Sounds like possibly, right?
Planning commission works quickly, they will.
Always, yes. Thank you.
I would urge you to attend that planning commission meeting.
All right, thanks.
Any other public comments?
There's somebody with their hand up.
Somebody on Zoom.
Victoria, hold on 1 second. Go ahead, Victoria, if you're not on, you're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So piggybacking on Steve Nichols' issue that he raised about speeding, my issue continues to be, for some reason, drivers, not all, but many, feel that they don't need to stop at stop signs, particularly at the intersection of Beach and Barnumville. Manchester Police is so tired of me calling and complaining about another 1, 2, 3, 4 drivers blaring through the intersection while I sit there. In the last week or 2, I was nearly T-boned by an H.N. Williams truck who barreled through the intersection and then decided to flip me off because I was parked waiting to proceed. But I couldn't proceed because he barreled through the intersection. I believe when I came before the board, and I'd have to check the minutes, September, October, the direction was for the town manager to contact Regional Planning Commission. If the town is going to embark on a speed survey, assessment, whatever, then I implore the town to include some significant intersections where people think the rules don't apply to them. Otherwise, someone is going to get T-boned, significantly hurt, and that would be a travesty.
Okay, I'm pretty familiar with the intersection. It's
Yeah,
right-
I'm
right.
waiting for a car to end up in your horse's pasture. That's how bad it is.
As do I will say that the police have spent more time probably at that intersection than any other one in town.
Ivan, wait a second. The police know, and I have been emphatically clear with them, that I am not criticizing their attempts. I have volunteered to fund traffic lights, cameras, so that license plates can be captured and called in or emailed, however they're called. Something has to be done. Otherwise, the more we keep talking about it, are we waiting for someone to be significantly hurt at the intersection? Are we waiting for a car to end up in your horse's pasture?
Okay, what I was going to say was that the police have spent a lot of time at that intersection. If you sit in my living room, evening after evening after evening, there will be between 8 and a dozen cars pulled over in front of my house that didn't stop at that stop sign. And they also catch them going the other way. But what you're telling me is that it's not working, even though they're spending a lot of time there. So I think that you're right, that we'll have to look at maybe some other way of enforcement. If we're having a problem at that intersection, there's probably others. And we need to figure out a way to get people to obey the rules. I agree with you.
I spoke to an officer last weekend or the weekend before and said, I will write a check to prompt the town to purchase cameras for that intersection.
Okay, you mentioned that. We have gone past the time allotment for this item, but I thank you for bringing it up. And
Not my first time, Ivan.
okay. Thank you, Victoria. Any other comments? If not, we'll get to the agenda. Well, I'll ask for approval of the minutes of 2 different meetings, February 6th and March 19th. Someone who was there.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from 2/6 and 3/19.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Please note that there was an abstention on the February 6th because one member wasn't a member yet. So one was 5-0, one was 4-0. Okay, do we have liquor licenses here this evening?
We have a lot of them. You have a list, and you should be able to read it fairly concisely. Anita made a nice layout for us. There's one new license you'll see down towards the bottom at 557 Depot Street, Village Market and Gas, it says. The rest of all are renewals and for various type of licenses and outside consumption permits and tobacco substitutes. And they're all current on their taxes. I must give Anita Sheldon, our town clerk, a pat on the back for that, because she was hustling them last Friday, and then minutes later, people would come in with $1.75 that they had owed or something like that. It's kind of funny. But anyways, they're all current, thanks to her and our staff, and it's in your hands now.
Is anybody interested in hearing the list? There's about between 35 and 40 of them.
No.
And we'll have a similar amount next meeting.
Yeah. So I would entertain a motion to approve these licenses based on the fact that they've all passed inspection.
Go ahead, Jan.
Move to approve the
Recording
liquor
in progress.
licenses as presented on this list.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? And on the liquor licenses, if anyone has any kind of financial connection to any of these, it would be appropriate to abstain on that particular one. But I don't think anybody does. No, okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I think that's 5-0. And get back to the agenda. Okay, next one is to adopt and certify the town roads and bridge standards, the annual financial plan, and the certificate of compliance for the Vermont Department of Transportation. Scott?
Yes, so this is something we have to do every year. It basically says that the town has spent more than, well, one financial plan says we've spent more than $300 per mile, easily accomplished. And also that we are building our roads per the state standards in various segments, which we do. And then that we have adopted these road standards.
Are you looking for a motion?
Yes, please.
Move to approve the annual financial plan for the town highways as presented.
Second.
Gotta be fast.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, that's 5-0.
Do we sign that tonight,
at least-
Scott?
I can sign on behalf of that, or you could all sign, depends on what you choose.
One page that has 5 spots.
Why don't we authorize Scott to sign it?
Okay.
Yeah, we should make a motion.
Go ahead.
I'll move to authorize the town manager to sign the document.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Yeah, I can remember times when we all signed it, but it's really not necessary.
It just seems a little redundant. Last year, I think I just, after you approved it, we didn't get it signed, and I signed it, there was no problems.
Yeah, okay. The next agenda item is to possibly reappoint Terrence Dorsey as Master Rep to the Southern Vermont Communications Union District. I didn't realize
Go ahead, sorry.
that we had that
Oh,
appointment.
yes.
I
Oh, yeah.
couldn't remember.
Oh, no, we definitely did.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been going well,
Yeah, good.
yeah. Do you want to address this, you'd have to do so from the podium,
I'd be happy to do this very quickly.
yeah.
Just to bring you up to speed, in 2020, we joined the Southern Vermont Communication Union District. And as part of that effort over the last few years, we've received a little over $9 million in ARPA funding as a grant. With that funding, we, in partnership with Consolidated, built out a all-fiber network to all the member towns in the Southern Vermont Communication Union District, including Manchester. That includes about 900 miles worth of fiber, passing 29,000 households. Within that, the portion that's grant funded, it's about 300 miles of fiber. And I believe something like 7,000 passings that were unserved or underserved households. In Manchester itself, we're very fortunate to have pretty good coverage of broadband. But now every eligible household, which is any household hooked up to the power grid, is eligible for high-speed fiber broadband service, in addition to any other service that might be available to them. And so that's quite good, I think. We finished build out in November last year. This year, we're working on the final 17, which are a few households that are connected to New York or Massachusetts, and ongoing oversight required because we have a federal grant. And that's pretty much where we are today. And I've been this chair of the board for 6 months now. And I'd just like to let anybody know who has questions about fiber broadband in Manchester to reach out to us. chair@sovtcud.net. And if there are questions about service availability, reach out to us, try and get it figured out.
So going forward, are there big items still left to be accomplished, or is it just really smaller infill and maintenance?
Going forward, we have the 17, which is difficult, but we'll see what happens with that. And we have some grant funds that we can try and figure out what the solution is for those households. We have mostly oversight issues, customer service oversight, and general federal lien oversight issues that have to do with having received a federal grant and owning assets that are paid for with a federal grant. That is, depending on who you talk to, between 8 years and 20 years of oversight. So we're working on that. We also coordinate with other CUDs on their efforts. Some of the other CUDs in the state, Otter Creek and Lamoille in particular, are also looking to partner with Consolidated to bring fiber to their neighborhoods.
So the Southern Vermont Communications Union District is how large?
It's 14 towns, mostly Bennington County.
I know I've asked these questions before, but
Asking as many
it
times.
helps to hear
That's
the
what we're
answer.
here for.
There's a hand up in the back.
Bill, move to the podium, please. I can, but people, we had.
just want to ask you a question. Sure, start now.
Yeah.
Who owns the fiber? And how do who gets the right to use it, I guess?
That's a great question, and I'm going way far down the hole. Consolidated owns most of it. The Southern Vermont CUD owns, as I said, about 600 miles of fiber. Consolidated operates and maintains it and services customers on our behalf. But you can sign up for their service. Anybody in Manchester should be able to sign up for that service.
So is this, say, competition to, say, Comcast?
Yes. Exactly.
Okay. So, and how does Fidium Fiber?
That is, the consumer product is called Fidium Fiber, but it's operated by Consolidated.
So I guess consumers would love to know that they have this option, I guess.
You know, what I was thinking, Bill, was if it's not too much of a burden, maybe Terrence could come in and report from time to time as an agenda item. I mean, the only thing we have on the agenda for tonight is to reappoint him to his position. I don't want to spend too much time on the nuts and bolts of it, but I think these are all really good questions, and I agree with you that people need to know.
I would love to come and speak more. I've tried
we'll-
to get on the agenda before and it hasn't worked out. You have a busy agenda, so feel free to invite me.
Thank you. We thank you for all your hard work, and I would entertain a motion.
I've got a hand up.
Do you want to entertain a question?
Chad, can you just briefly tell us what his involvement is with the town as far as cell tower usage? Is there something with that?
It's not related at all.
Okay, and is there any taxpayer funding that goes toward this process?
By statute, town tax funds cannot be used for this. We did receive, as I said, a $9 million federal grant to fund the project.
Thank you. Motion.
Yeah.
Reappoint.
I move to reappoint Terrence Dorsey as Manchester rep to the Southern Vermont Communications Union District.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Congratulations, and
Thank you.
Thank you for all your hard work.
And I'm a customer.
Okay, the next one is to possibly approve a Class 1 vendor license application to Everton Brownie for the Jamaican food truck at 159 Depot Street. At our last meeting, we discussed changes to the vendor ordinance. in order to accommodate special needs for this particular vendor. Since then, I've received some complaints. And I think Craig Hunter, is Craig
Yeah.
in attendance?
Yes. Sorry, let's see. Okay, Craig, can you?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Craig, if you can hear me, would you like for me to read your correspondence with me, or do you want to just handle this directly yourself?
I'd like to handle it directly if I can.
Yes, you may.
I'll be short and sweet. I basically have one comment and one suggestion. I first would like you all to take into consideration that we have a shared parking easement with 159 Depot Street for a total of 66 parking spaces, 31 of which are designated for use during the daytime and the rest at night. This is partially due to the fact that our property line actually goes beyond the parking lot island in the back into the Friends of the Sun parking, which is where the trailer and apparatus is currently parked. So I'd just like you to consider that when you're deliberating on this variance. And my only other suggestion, would be that if something like this, like something that's going to be semi-permanent in nature, is going to be placed in the commercial district, I think you should really reconsider requiring design review, the design review process to review both placement and design of whatever's going to be there on a permanent, semi-permanent basis. We all have to go through a pretty rigorous set of applications and hearings and town and state to build our structures. And, if someone's going to be permanently there, I think they should have to at least go through the town design review process. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Craig. As I understand, there are some other outstanding issues relative to this particular vending operation with regard to electrical usage and additional structures beyond the trailer itself that are part of the operation on the premises. It seems pretty complicated to me, and just speaking for myself, I'm not ready to approve this particular license until we have a chance to have some discussions with the underlying property owners and with the applicant himself to try to resolve some of these issues. As I said at our last meeting, we have to maintain the difference between a vendor and an actual structure that's permanent, that people have to get a zoning permit for, that they pay taxes on, that they have to have parking associated with it, and go through a number of other expenses. And we've always maintained that the vendor itself and whatever they use for a cart needs to be portable. It needs to be completely self-contained and able to be removed. We've always mandated that it be removed at the end of the day and brought back the next day. There was some discussion with regards to the ordinance that under certain circumstances, we would waive the part that says that it needs to be removed. There does seem to be some friction with that particular.
And Mr. Chairman, we wrote it as exceptions may be granted to the licensee by the select board on a case-to-case basis to waive the requirement for Class 2 vendors, specifically of the removal of equipment daily, provided the licensee meets all the other ordinances in this section. And it appears that the applicant is not meeting all of the other ordinances in the section. So I also agree that this is probably not possible for us to approve the the license at the time, and it would need to be reviewed probably, the town and maybe the DRB.
The other question is, on the agenda, it's being listed as a Class 1 vendor license. Is it changing to a Class 1, or is it staying?
May have been a typo.
That, yeah, it's a, as I understand it, it's a.
He's applied for a Class
I
1.
saw that.
Oh, he
too.
applied for a class one.
Class one.
Okay, well, it doesn't meet the, it's too large to be a class one.
Class 1 is 100 square feet.
Yeah, yeah. So we can't, I mean, we wouldn't be able to approve it as a class one anyway.
So, I mean, we can readdress that, and I can address issues with the vendor application applicant himself. I think tonight, the application was just for the vendor's license, and then when the previously amended ordinance kicked in, then he, along with any other vending license people, applicants, could ask for that variance.
Yes.
Hound Dogs has already brought that to our attention also. So when those 60 days expire, then they could apply for that case-by-case approval.
But I think there's a number of issues with this particular vendor that don't meet the standards of the.
Seems like, just in my eye, it's more than 100 square feet just in that regard itself.
Yeah, yeah, my understanding is there's a permanent structure associated with it. There's outside storage of materials. Steve?
Again, you're back to the consistency, and enforcement. Nobody, I'm not pointing the finger, but I am, because the Hound Dog, and I respect these businesses because we need them. But if these ordinances are put in place and the bylaws are put in place, they need to be followed and they need to be enforced. They're both up there. They're sitting, both those trailers were up there last night. And it's, what's fair to one is fair to another. And you adjusted the ordinance to where you discourage that, but yet, you need to think about it,
Yep.
Can I just say something really quickly about this?
Yeah, Tim.
Brownie is a friend of mine. I think he's a real asset to this community. I don't think English is his first language. Is there somebody that could hold his hand through this process?
That's
so
why
we can
we should
keep him
sit
here?
down with the underlying.
I really would
owner.
like to see a
One
diverse
of the-
business like that staying in Manchester, not continue to throw obstacles at him.
Well, just to be clear, both property owners who co-own that space have complained already. So
Right, I don't think
we
he's
need
doing it
to
maliciously.
get everybody together, and we need to make sure that Mr. Brownie understands what he's allowed to do, and
Yeah, as long as there's a
and
liaison.
if that doesn't
process.
work for him, it doesn't work for him, but we can't allow.
But is that possible? Can there be a liaison process? Because I think it's a communication issue. I don't think it's a malicious issue in his.
No, he's a nice guy.
So if there's
They're all-
something that
they're all
can
nice
help through
guys.
this, I think.
He was here at the last meeting, and I also saw him here at the town, so he's in conversation. It's just a matter of what the issues that are being brought forth tonight. It is not a removable van. Okay, so there's that, and there's parking, and there's complaints, so we'll try and work it out.
So we're gonna move beyond that one. We do this every year. We're gonna review the applications for outdoor dining on town-owned sidewalks. This includes Christo's, Thai Basil, and the Maple Reserve. They've all submitted applications to use town-owned sidewalks for outdoor dining. During COVID, we allowed.
Sorry to interrupt. I've had my hand up for about 3 minutes.
Oh, sorry about that. Not everybody can see the screen.
Sorry, it's Paul
Paul.
Crutchfield.
Ivan, could I ask you to retract your comment that both owners of the two properties have had negative comments about?
Oh, yeah,
Brown.
because Paul was the owner and
Okay,
Friends of the Sun is the tenant.
yeah, I'm sorry. The other party that complained was Friends of the Sun, not the underlying property owner. So you're
Could
right.
you elaborate on that complaint? Because
That complaint was a complaint relative to where the electrical power was coming from for the operation.
Did that complaint come from the Friends of the Sun?
I received a letter to that effect, yes,
How did you receive that letter?
electronically. I don't have it in front of me. It was, you know what? I'm not going to tie up the meeting. I'll get back to you on that.
Thanks, Ivan.
Okay. Let's see, we moved on to the, sorry about that. We can't see the screen for the Zoom, so don't hesitate to interrupt if we don't notice that you have a hand up. The outdoor dining, I started to explain, we started during COVID allowing outdoor dining as a way to help some of these businesses get through the difficulties of that. At the same time, we learned that it added quite a bit to the streetscape of Manchester, and people seem to like it. So over the last few years, we've grappled with how to allow it to continue. And I think for the most part, there hasn't been a whole lot of friction. The one place where there does appear to be some friction is at Christo's. It does take up the whole sidewalk, and the traffic flow has to be redirected out into the parking spaces. It's not ideal, but I think we need to discuss that if we're going to allow that sort of thing to keep going forward.
So I thought, Mr. Chairman, that we'd asked the planning commission to look at the ordinance, and then this was going to be taken care of by the DRB. And that was the last 2 times we discussed it. I'm willing to deal with these as they are. But that was my understanding. And it would be, I think it would probably work better. I know that I've talked to the chairman of the DRB who said, there are times when site visits are definitely necessary. So I know we all know of the ones we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't, with the traffic pattern stayed the same, we just moved the sidewalk out into the parking area. And they have ramps, and it seems to work. It's actually traffic calming because people generally have to slow down. But I do think this is an issue for the amending the ordinance, and maybe we amend the ordinance, but I think it's a DRB issue.
We have a hand up. Billy Brown.
We have a hand up.
Hello, I'm apologetic for joining late, but I was informed that H.N. Williams' store was brought into this meeting by somebody, and I just wanted to address that whatever claims were made are inaccurate. My trucks have been at my business since the snowstorm, and so I just wanted to, put that out there to make sure that that didn't reflect my business. So thank you.
Thank you for that input, and it's so noted. I think these are all known quantities to us, and we have approved them in the past, and I think you have a good idea, Greg. If we were to cover it this year, but then get it restructured so that they get reviewed by the DRB.
Okay, I mean, last year Heidi said, let's kick it back to the planning commission, right?
Last 2 years I've said that.
Okay, so we can kick to the DRB now?
I think the planning commission have to look at the ordinance, and the ordinance
The
may need to be
DRB
amended.
can't write ordinances. They can only.
Right.
Yeah, so why would we send it to the DRB?
And then after that, it would be a licensing function or a permitting function of the DRB, not the select board. Because I think that on many occasions, these will need site visits in the future. And there are some that are just plain dangerous.
All right, well, let's start with the first step. And
I'm willing to do the 3 that
after
were.
this season.
I think that Maple Reserve, I don't know what their layout is, but I think they have plenty of space. It's very similar to,
They had a little site map there. Did you get a copy of that?
Did.
Further down, shows the sidewalk and where their tables would be sitting. I'll find it today.
question with them is, will the necessity for the extension of the sidewalk have to be taking up another space? And currently, I think,
I don't think so. They're only asking for 2 tables.
oh, and then, yeah, and they actually have an overhang. They're going to be off.
According to the map, they're not interfering with the sidewalk.
And I don't have that.
Yes.
I have everything else.
My name's Austin Phillips. I'm the owner of the Maple Reserve. So we're just talking about 2 small tables in front of the windows. It'll be a total of 4 seats, close to the building, nothing out.
There's plenty of sidewalk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for clarification on that.
And other than that, Mr. Chairman, we all know Ty Basil. We know how Chris does it. So I'm going to make a motion to approve the Christos, Ty Basil, and Maple Reserve applications for use of outdoor dining.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And those 3 licenses are approved. And with hopefully the plan to have the planning commission take a look at it and see if there's some way to put an ordinance together that would help us not only try to address the issues that these may present, but also would put it under the purview of the DRB for review. Okay.
Moving right along.
We're doing all right.
My housing task force. So if you need it.
Okay, we've, agenda item 11 is to possibly accept the VORAC community grant for the Riverwalk Bridge.
Did we miss one?
There's a few moving pieces to this, Scott, if you want to present on it.
There is. So I'll just start at the beginning of it. So Riverwalk Association made an application to VORAC. VORAC is a recreational grant funding program. We actually applied at the same time for tennis courts and things. Ours was rejected only because we didn't meet the criteria, which they don't fund like maintenance, and they considered that as a maintenance. So, but luckily, VORAC approved, or at least seemed to approve, the Riverwalk for a substantial amount. I'd rather not say what it is tonight because we haven't received official grant notification, which will come in a big press release, I imagine, with the governor. So anyways, they have asked us to they want to know which entity is going to be the grant manager and the grant recipient. Riverwalk has asked us to do that. We have the capacity to do that, and it would work best in both interests if we did do that, and we're willing to do that. But we just need select board authority and approvals to do that.
So without getting into specific numbers, and I've seen the magnitude of the grant, how would that get you pretty close to where you need to be to start the project?
I'm Margaret Donovan, President of Manchester Riverwalk, and the answer is yes, absolutely. We are thrilled with this grant.
Motion to approve the town of Manchester?
Oh, dear.
Steve?
Thanks for coming to the podium.
With this grant, is there matching money from this town or a taxpayer dollar for that?
No.
We already gave the money.
We've already,
Riverwalk has fundraised the rest of it, or
yeah, we did approve a municipal contribution
Yeah, we did that already.
already, and that is the town's full responsibility at this point. Yeah, this grant is strictly a straight-through pass grant.
Now, accepting the management responsibility, what does that entail?
It's project management, and so we have to submit reports and final reports when the project's completed. We have to be the recipient of the funds. We have to be certified to receive the funds, we have to report on the funds. That's all.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
There is a motion.
I believe,
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to accept have the town of Manchester accept the Borak Community Grant for the Riverwalk Bridge.
Second?
that was a second, John? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you, Mark.
Congratulations. Hopefully that goes smoothly.
Okay, we have received from the Housing Task Force,
This is from Gordon.
okay, from Gordon, a proposed mission statement for the task force.
So you want me to give you a brief history of the,
Sure.
in a nutshell, the Housing Task Force as best I can? So apparently during, I think a year ago fall, maybe 2 years ago, this upcoming fall, Phil Peterson, who was chair of the Planning Commission at the time, organized this group to meet and had the two representatives, our local representatives, Kathleen and Seth, come to the meeting, and they were kind of brainstorming how we could help housing develop in town. And since that time, the group has been meeting and growing over the course of that time. We've been keeping minutes, but there was never an appointment by the select board of a committee. And basically, they've kind of got to the point now where they've got different directions they want to go, but they actually need direction given from the select board. So that's what Gordon has proposed in front of you right now. And Ivan, as you know, I think Wilbur Rice, chair of the Planning Commission, has sent out an email in the last couple of days about a different proposal, or at least a smaller group proposal of the Planning Commission chair, the DRB chair, and one member from the select board, and Gordon, and maybe others.
Yeah, I know there's been a little bit of confusion all the way around on this, and maybe I haven't done a very good job of explaining the select board's position on this. The Planning Commission can put together any type of group that they want to advise them in a non-official capacity. But this is a very significant issue here in town, and in conversations with the former select board or Planning Commission chair, we both decided that it would make more sense rather than having this be an advisory ad hoc committee to the Planning Commission, that it be a town committee, which would require that it be an appointment from the select board. You know, there's a lot of moving pieces to it. That particular part of it has never happened, and that leaves the good people that are serving on the task force kind of in limbo as to what their authority is and who they report to. We really need to clear this up, clean it up, and get it moving forward. We thought a good first step would be to try to develop a mission statement for the Housing Task Force, but since then I've received a couple of communications from other board chairs that they thought that we ought to maybe reconstruct the task force itself to get all the people that are represented in local government seated at the table to kind of get this to move forward in a way that serves everybody's needs, and that would be Planning Commission, DRB, Select Board, general public. So I think in order to get this moving forward, we should catalog all these different ideas of what people think the composition of this board should be, and get it boiled down to something that is workable, that represents all the various interests, and can be manageable going forward. without belittling the hard work that's been put into this by the task force up to this point. I mean, there's been some really hard work and a lot of thought that's gone into this, and I don't want to diminish that in any way. I think using that original task force, which it still exists today, as the starting place and the springboard, that maybe we can reconfigure, reconstruct, get some guidelines in place and get this moving forward, so that we can get something productive out of it. I think no matter what form this task force takes going forward, that Gordon will be the staff person associated with it. And he has been involved in these conversations as far as what the structure of the task force should be, what the makeup of the task force should be. So he's aware of that, and is supportive of it. Getting the select board, the planning commission, and the DRB directly represented on the task force. I think it expedites things tremendously to do that. So I think that probably this mission statement works.
Read out loud.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Proposed revision of Manchester mission statement. The purpose of the Housing Task Force is to recognize, promote, enhance, and encourage development of a balanced and diverse supply of housing to meet the economic, social, and physical needs of the town of Manchester and its residents. The task force advises the Select Board, Planning Commission, and other municipal boards on the housing needs of the community, including review and recommendations on potential policy and zoning changes related to housing. The task force also works to educate the public on housing topics and opportunities, as well as to develop relationships with state agencies, nonprofits, and developers to advance the community's housing goals.
Excuse me.
Before we open it up, I'll keep the conversation here at the table. I think that works as a springboard for this task force to have a mission and goals going forward. It's pretty general. And I think it matches what they've been attempting to do up to this point and would carry us going forward. I will defer to other board members' thoughts as to whether we should approve this tonight, before we get into the discussion of
I have a question.
the makeup of the board. Yes.
So would we dissolve the task force operating underneath the planning commission and then reinstate it operating under?
I'm open
the
to
select board?
any.
Because I think that
suggestions.
would be the first order of business. Just to make it clear that the task force is working under the select.
And I think Ivan, you did say very clearly that, not to belittle the work that the group has already done. I think it's important that we involve the existing group as much as possible.
I'm just saying, just organize, I'm talking about the organization, not the people in it.
Yeah.
And they would come with it, but I think we should make it clear that it's a entity underneath the,
I think
created by.
do they have a meeting coming up? Is there?
The 8th.
It probably.
Let me just check here.
Ask a clarifying question.
Ivan, the housing task force is, I believe, is Monday, the 15th.
15th, that's right, I did see that, yes.
It was meant to be on the 8th and we moved it because I think someone's away. So I think they moved it.
The planning commission is meeting on the 8th also, right after the eclipse.
Yeah.
A lot going on that day.
So if the committee as it stands today, though, is a committee under the planning commission, it would be up to the planning commission to dissolve that operation, correct? It's not up to the select board to make that decision.
Potentially, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would like for everybody to be on the same page. And I think probably the best way to do that is to carry the message directly to the groups that are involved. Planning commission meetings are at 5:30, but I'm going to try to get to the next planning commission meeting just to sit and listen. But and if I'll clear it with the chair, but if there's a way to just bring this up just as a matter of interest, he's already involved in the conversation. And then I'll make a commitment to try to get to the housing task force, or one of us get there to carry that message in a meeting setting to them as to where we'd like to go and get their input so that everybody can work together on this.
Mr. Chairman, I'm just wanting to clarify, is this going to be similar to what we set up for the Energy Committee? Is that going to be kind of a similar structure?
It's not. And the reason that it's not is because the Energy Committee is almost entirely made up of citizens at large.
Okay.
And people that have interest or education in that particular area. This would be more a government function.
Okay.
Taking members from each of the major boards, along with perhaps other individuals that could bring weight to the process.
And who will be in charge of making the appointments for the?
It would be the select board.
Okay.
That way it's an official town committee.
Got it.
Well, then, once you reorganize the committee, serving under, if and when you reorganize it, serving under the select board, then I think we should adopt this mission statement, but not till then.
Okay.
Because it says in the mission statement, advising the select board, so.
Yeah. All right. I'm fine with that. Steve, you had your hand up before.
It's a great group that you have together, but the concern that is shared, and you all had shared the same concern, that, there's a lot of private interest in this group and a private agenda moving forward. And we've got to avoid that. We've got to have the taxpayer input. And we've got to organize a forum to do that, like it was organized with the town plan under the direction of Wayne Granquist. And that did work. And we know that worked. Okay? The other thing is that I don't know, your main issue here with affordable housing falls back onto the legislature. And if you're following, what the hell they're doing now, it's disastrous. And to put this housing task force in a situation where the state is sticking their nose in, it's not going to work. And it's a waste of time. It really, look at these new bills that they put out there. I think S80 is one. I've read through bills all day long. And the rampant loopholes in that process are just ridiculous. You really need to think this through.
Steve, the task force met last week, or 2 weeks ago, whenever it was, but they also came up with a lot of ideas that wouldn't involve state interference, which were good. And I hope that if we do get it sorted, one of the things that we can do is to create a web presence, which they recommended, which would be able to disseminate what's actually happening with housing, and both from the municipality's ability and from what you're talking about, what's going on the state level, and then ideas that are out there that can possibly work.
Well, and just to add to what Greg was saying, the fact that these will be public meetings, that's where the community input should come into place, and that, people are always invited to come to all these open meetings.
I think it needs to be organized, though. Now, I mean, this is
Like
great.
we're talking about
Everybody's-
doing
You know
just
what I'm
that.
saying,
We're
yeah.
We're talking about organizing it so that people can come to that.
Well, what Steve is referring to is an actual process that took place where, I forget how many people participated in that one.
Really
It
good.
was a lot of people.
I mean, they had round tables, Greg, and
Yeah, I was,
Wade was up here.
well, not then maybe, but.
It's when Lee was here.
Yeah.
And I mean, the process was
I
excellent.
mean, I went through the 2020 group and the other.
It was
Yeah, and I-
very well done.
The Manchester 2020, I think some 400 people participated in
Right,
that.
it was huge.
Now, if you look at our town website, okay, this is almost, and I don't disagree with Gordon, less is more, but this is exactly what's written in there. There's no change to this. So is there meaning to this? Or would the task force be looking for more detailed outline of what you're going to
I think
expect?
what you saw on the website was just created and as having a place to start from there to do the page we're talking about with the information we're talking about. But since we're not quite there on the organization of the committee yet, and the mission statement, it won't be adopted probably until the next time we meet.
Well, I think based on Greg, or Steve, what is mentioned about the group, I think that's kind of the thing that I had discussed as part of, at the last meeting was like, a community involvement in a lot of those places could really create a lot of momentum and buy into the opportunity. So, I think it's great. I personally, I think it's great that if we can put together, like you said, a catalyst that has all of the members so that we're not, it's like lobbing it over and then waiting for the next month for the next meeting and, all these timeframes that need to be.
I think it could add some momentum, like you say, but also some efficiency.
Yes,
in regard to
absolutely.
moving things.
We do have.
Phil, you
Sorry.
wanted to speak. Please.
Yes, if you want to web too.
Please correct me if I'm wrong or didn't hear correctly, but I heard primarily two, I guess, policy statements or recommendations out of the mission statement, which was zoning bylaws, working to do what's necessary in that area. And frankly, I think they've done a pretty good job up to date in that area. And then the second one was education. But I think I would like to see it stronger, where that this committee advocates for policy and makes policy recommendations to the select board outside of those areas that potentially enhances the availability of housing. And that can, and some examples, for example, are, liaison with Shires Housing, for example.
Let me just interrupt this for a second. It says the task force also works to educate the public on housing topics and opportunities, as well as to develop relationships with state agencies, nonprofits, and developers to advance the community's housing goals. So I think that would be included in that.
In relationships versus, I'm looking for something more forceful of, developing.
Partnerships?
Partnerships.
The Depot Street project, I think, was a good example of exactly what you're talking about. We were working with private funding and public nonprofit housing agencies and the town to try and get that project going. I think we're ready to, I'm speaking for me, but I think that that's the direction we're still heading in as soon as an opportunity presents itself, in addition to what the other ideas they come up with.
Okay, I just want to make sure it's broad enough and strong enough that, because, there's some conversation about forming a housing trust might be one way to do it, to help things. We've got to find parcels of land where we want to put housing of some things. And that's where I think this task force can have a direct impact, do some of that homework and legwork, and so that the board can move forward quickly.
But let's be clear, the task force would help with facilitation at the municipal level with the boards.
Right.
Also, we would all be working to facilitate the private developers that'll be spending their money and doing the work. I mean,
That's a prime requirement.
the town won't be building any of this.
No.
It's all going to come from private investment. So there needs to be some facilitation there also.
Right.
There's a hand up.
We have two hands up online,
Okay.
Victoria, and
Thank you.
Okay, Victoria.
you're on mute, Victoria. There you go.
I'm joining by my phone. I'm not used to doing this by phone. I think it was Steve Nichols. When you spoke, Steve, I think I heard you say, so I'm asking for clarification, and don't immediately answer because I have a question for the select board also. But Steve, I think I heard you say, well, there's private interest in that group. Could you clarify what you mean by members of the Housing Task Force having private interest, if that's indeed what you meant to say? And I think I heard someone on the select board say something about, well, this way the meetings of the Housing Task Force will be open. Our meetings always are open. They're warned and they're on the town calendar. So I'm not sure what is meant by clarifying that going forward, the meetings of the Housing Task Force will be open. They are open.
Victoria, that's what I said. I said the meetings are open and they're always available for public input.
Like I said, I'm joining by phone, so I may have missed that. Thanks for clarifying that. To Steve, did you mean to say that there are people on the Housing Task Force that have private interest?
I sure did. You want to know? I'll tell you.
Ivan, I don't
Into
know
that discussion.
I don't think we want to get into that discussion.
know that it's
here.
appropriate to do that, but I asked Mr. Nichols to follow up with the Housing Task Force and to clarify what the accusation means.
That's a reasonable request if he agrees. But I don't think we're going to clarify anything by having this discussion take place at this meeting.
On the discussion taking place tonight, Ivan, thank you.
Thank you, Victoria.
Paul Crush, yeah.
There's another person.
Another person with a hand up?
Yep, Paul Crush. Paul, can you unmute? Hey.
Sure. Thanks. Sorry, I can't be there in person. I don't know if it's the correct forum, but I do think that it's appropriate to bring it to the select board's attention that your representative, Seth Bongartz, has received approval in the House, and now it's in the Senate for Bill H 678, which is a revision of Act 250, which is about 59, 60 pages. And I encourage the select board to read that, and to Victoria for the Housing Task Force to read it too, because my interpretation of that presented bill is that we're wasting our time having a housing task force without addressing the terms of that revision. And I don't know if it'll get approved, who knows, through the Senate, or if the governor will veto it and it'll go back into the washing machine. But that bill particularly puts all land decisions into a 5-member board approved or appointed by the governor, and then any appeals would circle back to that 5-member board. And any of these housing development ideas that are in downtown districts, that district would have to be approved by that board. And so, to Bill's point, some of these, I don't know, housing authorities or what you might call them, would become stronger entities that the state board, whatever we're calling this, and I think it's called the environmental board, would then approve these housing areas. But I strongly recommend everyone that's interested in this topic to read Bill H 678, which has been presented by your representative in Manchester for total control of all land in Vermont.
Can I make a follow-up?
Thank you, Paul. That's helpful.
It's quick.
Steve, go ahead.
I was following that bill, and I still am, and I got back and I went into 2023, and the governor proposed a bill 100. So I would question the veto power that he had to veto that bill and go back to his approved Bill 100. So I would encourage the select board and the task force to read the governor's Bill 100.
Okay, we're under the agenda item to review the proposed housing task force mission statement. I think the sentiment of the board is that maybe we're not at the right point right now to approve this, but I think it's very close to what that mission statement might be. And I appreciate everybody's input on that. If anybody's
I just,
strongly otherwise,
no, I just wanted to say, I wanted to thank the board for hearing the calls by many that need to move things faster. And I think that this is a step in the right direction.
I just want to add, Mr. Chairman, what Paul said is directly related to development of housing, actually building it, going through the Act 250 process. And the task force had some other great ideas that don't involve building. So there's other ways, and there are about 5 or 6 other ways to address the issue without actually putting something into an Act 250 process. And so I'm looking forward to getting this rolling and moving it along pretty quickly, because Paul's right, and that's going to be a real hindrance to new development. But there are other things.
It's Tim.
Tim Waker.
Oh, Tim Waker's on.
Sorry, Tim, I didn't know if you were trying to say something. You need to unmute yourself.
if not, if everybody's in agreement, no action at this time. We'll move on to the next agenda item, which is for the sewer commissioners to review.
Can you hear that?
Proposal for work on the Green Mountain sewer lines prior to the town takeover. Scott, maybe you can lead us through that.
Sure, absolutely. Let me update you where we are on the Green Mountain Estates takeover, first of all, because that's been a changing scene recently. So we're getting really close. We have just got court approval for the settlement agreement and also for our licenses to sell, which were required. And so all that's remaining is for a dedication and acceptance of roads. And in order to do that, and that's where you would come in, we would meet on site after a 30-day notice was certified mail to everybody. We would meet on site prior to a select board meeting, which would include a hearing, and we would review the road in person and then retire back here to a meeting and hold the public meeting at that time when we could possibly accept the road for the town. But we're not quite there yet. We still need some survey work done, very small amount of survey work done, but unfortunately, the surveyors are really busy right now. So we're working on that. Chrissy Haskins has got a couple that she's tracking down, but we should be able to get that done in the next 4 to 6 weeks. And I know that sounds like a long period of time, but it's, you know, if you look how far we've come already, that's really not that.
Taking us 20 years to get to this point.
So in the meantime, we've gotten this, Eric Severance has gotten this proposal from Green Mountain Lining Company, and they're really hard to get into town. They're really good, but they're really hard to get in town. And right now, they have a slow period. And in talking to Eric, they would be willing to come in now before they pick up steam and do these sewer lines. What they do is they run a camera through the sewer line, and at the same time, the same mechanical piece can seal the sewer behind it on the pieces that are letting infiltration come into the sewer line. So it would cost us about $18,000 to $20,000. About 3 to 5 days of work for this. They're very efficient, very quick, and then we get a recording also of what the sewer line looks like.
Hey.
It's not as bad as you would think, for the most part. The problem is we don't own the sewer.
Like a colonoscopy.
That picture on the wall.
We don't own the sewer lines yet. So, you know, the question is, do we want to spend money to that when we don't own it? We'd also have to receive permission from the current owners, which we don't have yet. We haven't really asked for.
Is that a liability insurance wise? Also,
No. I mean, let's say the whole deal fell apart. They would be the owners of this improved sewer line in a camera recording.
Does Eric recommend that we do this?
Yes, he does.
Yeah.
Because we're gonna have to do it one way or the other, and when we acquire, let's say this goes through in like 2 months, and now we're new, the proud owners of the sewer line that has cracks in it.
Do the work.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna make the motion that we accept the proposal from Green Mountain Pipeline Services as presented. There's a motion, there's a hand up.
I know. I'm gonna accept the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion?
And Eric may be on the call here if he.
Yes, he is.
Well, let's just ask if he has anything to add under discussion.
Go ahead, Eric.
I think Scott covered it pretty well. Can you hear me?
Yes.
A couple small things is this is the time of year to find, our goal is to track the groundwater getting into the sewer system. And this is the prime time of year to do it. And the other advantage to doing it as soon as possible is if we find anything that needs to be excavated, we want to get that, know where it is, so that if it comes in play with the black topping, I know one of the next steps is the black topping. So we want to do the excavating before the black topping takes place.
Yeah, I agree. Nothing worse than putting a finished coat on a road and then tearing the thing up. We get a lot of criticism.
Right, and this would indicate, the camera would indicate areas that may need excavating for us, so we'd at least know where they are.
Do we suspect there's a lot of infiltration there?
We know there's some, and we know it is really bad during the flooding situations. And ultimately, any infiltration that we can get rid of is going to be beneficial to the wastewater treatment plant.
Do we know if there's
and
any
the pump stations, both pump stations, theirs and ours.
Yeah. Do we know if there's any like basement drains or anything like that go into the sewer system?
We don't know exactly, but we do believe there are a few.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. That would certainly come into play during the flooding season.
Yeah, and we can also locate those, a lot of cases with the camera. Because you'll see the pumps coming on and coming in on their services.
We're in the discussion of a motion, so typically I wouldn't open it up to outside.
I'd just like to say you want to make it conditional upon getting the permission.
Yes. Scott had certainly made that clear in his presentation, but
The motion didn't say that.
the motion did not say that. We have a motion made and seconded. I would entertain an amendment to that motion to make it conditional upon the approval of the owner of the sewer line.
You agree?
Well, I was going to wait for you to amend it. Anybody can amend it.
Yep.
I'll make an amendment to my original motion that we accept the proposal from Green Mountain Pipeline Services contingent upon the acceptance by the owner of the property.
Is there a second to that amendment?
Second.
Okay, because we have parliamentarians in the room, we're going to do this as per Robert's rules. We'll act on the amendment only, which added the words that with approval of the owner. All in favor of that amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Which gets us back to the main motion now as amended. All in favor of the main motion to do this work with the approval of the owner signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's 5-0. How'd I do, Mike?
Great.
Thanks, Eric.
Also prevent.
We're down to town manager updates.
Yeah, I've got several. There's real quick. The railing, historic railing near the roundabout near Walker's, Kimball's place there, is not doing well and will need will need to be replaced in the next couple of years. And I say a couple of years because apparently it takes that long to build and cure these type of fences. So we don't have it in our budget, and it's not in FY '25's either. So we will build it in FY '26's budget, assuming it's acceptable to you and to the voters. In the meantime, the property owners there may fund it in advance and buy the new fence and let it cure. But we're not really sure about that yet. So I just wanted to update you that we're working with them. If we do replace it, it's going to be similar to the one that's around the dam now. Not quite the pointy pieces in the top, but very similar look. And it would match that one there. CPR training is going to be held next week on the 11th. And so the building here, town office building, is going to be closed until noon. We'll be over at the emergency offices. And you people are invited, if you would like to join in the CPR training. It'll be from 9 to 12. You're certainly welcome to learn the new techniques of CPR, but we'll be closed that morning, just so you know, and we will put out that on our various sources. And finally, I wanted to update you on the personnel policy status. We've been working on this for so long, and I know you had a first glance at it, and then we sent it up to the attorney that deals with this sort of thing. Just haven't got it back from him. We promised the last week of February we would have it, and here we are, 1st of April. So got on his case a little bit today, and I imagine we'll have it at our next meeting, I hope.
Oh my God. We're down to other business at the select board table with time to spare.
Mr. Chairman,
Everyone too.
I'd like the minutes to reflect that the meeting was dedicated to Sally Treat.
Yes.
A notable-
In an oversight on my part, last week I meant to adjourn the meeting in memory of Sally Treat, who I sat with here on the board for 16 years, and I would accept that motion. Was there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Is there any other business?
Yes. We need to schedule the Unsung Hero Awards. And I thought our next meeting would be the 16th, but one of our unsung heroes can't come the 16th. So I'm thinking, since the 16th also is a spring break around here, I think, can we have our next meeting on the 30th instead of the 16th?
I like your style.
I think that'll work. The only possible type difficulty we'll see is those renewable of liquor licenses. That's the last day that they still have their liquor license. So hopefully that won't cause any problems.
So if it isn't the 16th, maybe we could check the week between, what's the date between?
23rd.
The 23rd.
Third.
Is that still break?
No.
No. I can ask if they're available the 23rd. We can try the 23rd.
That would give us a little bit of non-liquor license.
Let me ask if they're available the 23rd,
Okay.
and then I'll email you out if they are. And if they aren't, then
We'll go to the
tell
30th.
me.
If it's not the 23rd, we'll go to the 30th.
And then would we start doing every other week from the 23rd or the 30th, depending on when we?
We go to the 7th, is that first one in May.
Okay. So we stay back, we go.
Go back to our regular schedule in May.
Can that be
So we'll do
incorporated
2 in a row.
into a town meeting, Mr. Chairman, under recognitions? Or is there a time
Well,
frame that doesn't work?
we were going to do it, but we couldn't get it done in what, we were
In time?
trying.
No,
to
no,
do
no, I meant maybe going forward, it might be a nice way to do it.
it. I know, it's
Yeah,
hard.
it's
Mr.
hard.
Moderator, what are your thoughts on that? It can be a,
It's really not town meeting business.
Yeah.
It's, I understand you want the captive audience, but same argument could be made for a lot.
Right.
And yes, there's more people there, but wouldn't it be better to have something that's more a celebration of that person, not fighting on the other side of 20-something.
Right. Okay.
That's my prejudice.
Asked, answered, and I think that makes sense.
so we're going to shoot for the 23rd, and
Hopefully I'll have an answer tomorrow.
Hopefully,
And see if they're available.
hopefully everybody's healthy and doing well at this point.
No.
No. Sorry to hear. Other business.
Anybody?
We do need an executive.
For you, Scott. We have a potential for litigation. Is there any reason to have an executive session to bring the board up to speed on that at this point, or?
We do need an executive session anyways for contracts.
Okay. I think I would like to add potential litigation to what we'll be discussing. And
All right, so whoever makes the motion, Greg or whoever,
I'll make a motion to
include that.
enter into executive session for the discussion of negotiations of real estate and possible litigation, disclosure of which might put the town at a distinct disadvantage.
Sorry.
seconded by Jan. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And we'll be going into executive session. We will not be taking any actions coming out of executive session except to close the meeting. You're welcome to stay, but it's going to be pretty boring.